Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. One of the greatest skills you will ever develop in your life is learning how to take control of your feelings. Not ignore them, not pretend they don't exist, but control them. Your feelings are real, but they should never become your master. Let me say that again because somebody needs to hear it clearly today. Your feelings are real, they matter, they are valid, but they are not supposed to be in charge of your life. Too many people wake up every morning and let whatever they feel decide how the whole day is going to go. If they feel tired, they quit early. If they feel angry, they burn bridges. If they feel afraid, they don't even try. And before they know it, their emotions are running their schedule, their choices, their future. Feelings are powerful, yes, but power without direction is dangerous. Feelings change. One moment you feel confident, the next moment doubt creeps in. One moment you feel motivated, the next moment discouragement shows up uninvited. If you let every emotional shift control your actions, your life will be unstable, inconsistent, and exhausting. Mature people understand something very important. Just because you feel it doesn't mean you have to follow it. You can acknowledge a feeling without obeying it. You can say, "I'm angry," without acting angry. You can say, "I'm scared," without backing down. That's called emotional leadership, and every successful person has learned it the hard way. Life will test you emotionally before it ever rewards you materially. There will be days when you feel like quitting, even though quitting is the worst possible decision. There will be moments when you feel offended, overlooked, or disrespected, and your emotions will beg you to react. But reaction is easy. Control is rare. Control is what separates people who keep going from people who keep starting over. Your feelings should work for you, not against you. They are signals, not commands. Hunger tells you to eat, but it doesn't tell you what to eat. Anger tells you something feels wrong, but it doesn't tell you to destroy everything in sight. Fear tells you something matters, but it doesn't mean you're incapable. When you let feelings become your master, they shrink your world. You stop taking risks, you stop trusting the process, you stop believing in timing. But when you master your feelings, your world expands. You gain patience, you gain clarity, you gain the ability to stay focused even when everything inside you wants to panic. Strong people aren't numb, they feel deeply. The difference is they've trained themselves not to hand over control every time an emotion knocks on the door. They listen, they learn, and then they decide. And that decision-making power, that's where growth lives. Discipline over emotion is what separates reaction from growth. And if you don't learn this, life will keep teaching you the same painful lesson over and over again. See, emotion is fast. Emotion reacts instantly. It doesn't ask questions. It doesn't think about tomorrow. It only cares about how you feel right now. Discipline, on the other hand, is slower, calmer, and wiser. Discipline asks, if I do this, where will it take me? Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they let emotion make decisions that discipline should have made. You feel tired, so you skip the work. You feel offended, so you quit the relationship. You feel discouraged, so you abandon the dream. And every time you choose emotion over discipline, growth gets delayed. Discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. And let me tell you something real. Most of the important things in life won't come with motivation attached. You won't always feel inspired to be patient. You won't always feel confident enough to keep going. You won't always feel ready. That's where discipline steps in and says, do it anyway. Growth doesn't happen in emotional comfort. It happens in disciplined consistency. Think about it. Nobody becomes better by reacting. Reaction keeps you stuck at the same level, repeating the same patterns. Growth requires restraint. It requires you to bite your tongue when your ego wants to speak. It requires you to show up when excuses feel more comfortable. Emotion says, I deserve to act this way because of how I feel. Discipline says, I deserve a better future, so I'll act differently. And that difference changes everything. When you start choosing discipline, Your life begins to stabilize. Your mood no longer controls your productivity. Your anger no longer controls your words. Your fear no longer controls your decisions. You begin to respond instead of react, and response is power. Reaction is temporary relief. Response is long-term progress. People who grow understand delayed gratification. They understand that just because something feels good now doesn't mean it's good for them later. Discipline teaches you to sacrifice short-term emotional comfort for long-term success. It teaches you to sit in discomfort without self-destructing. And that ability right there, to stay disciplined when emotions are loud, is what builds character. Anyone can react when life gets hard. It takes a disciplined mind to stay steady when everything inside you wants to explode. The truth is, discipline doesn't remove emotion. It puts emotion in its proper place. You still feel anger, disappointment, and frustration, but you don't let them run the show. You run the show. And when discipline becomes stronger than emotion, growth becomes unavoidable. You have the power to pause, think, and choose your response, and that power is one of the greatest abilities you will ever develop in your life. Most mistakes people regret didn't happen because they were bad people. They happened because they reacted too quickly. Something was said, something went wrong, emotions rose fast, and before the mind had a chance to catch up, the reaction was already out there. Words were spoken that couldn't be taken back. Decisions were made in seconds that created consequences for years, all because there was no pause between feeling and action. The pause is small, sometimes only a few seconds, but it is powerful. That space between what happens to you and how you respond is where wisdom lives. Without it, you operate on impulse, and impulse rarely leads to the best outcomes. When you pause, you give your mind time to step in and guide you. Instead of being pushed by emotion, you begin to move with intention. Think about how many conflicts could be softened if people simply paused before responding. When someone criticizes you, your first instinct might be to defend yourself immediately. When you feel disrespected, you might want to react just as strongly. But a pause allows you to ask, what response will actually help this situation? Often, the strongest response is not the loudest one, but the calmest one. Pausing does not mean you are weak, and it does not mean you are ignoring your feelings. It means you are strong enough to stay in control. Anyone can blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. That takes no effort at all. Choosing your response requires awareness and maturity. It shows that you are thinking beyond the moment and considering the direction of your life. When you learn to pause, you start noticing that not everything deserves your reaction. Some comments are not worth your energy. Some misunderstandings are better handled with patience. Some frustrations are temporary and will pass if you don't fuel them. Protecting your peace often begins with a simple decision not to react right away. This ability also strengthens your confidence. Instead of feeling like life is happening to you, you begin to feel capable of handling whatever comes your way. You recognize that while you cannot control every event, you can always influence what you do next. That realization creates a sense of steadiness that others can feel when they are around you. Choosing your response is also how you shape your character. Each time you pause and respond thoughtfully, you reinforce the kind of person you want to become. Someone who is reliable, measured, and guided by purpose rather than pressure. Over time, these small choices build trust in yourself because you know you won't be easily carried away by the intensity of a moment. There will always be situations that test your patience. There will be unexpected setbacks, challenging conversations, and moments when emotions rise quickly. In those times, remember that you are not powerless. Take a breath, allow the surge of feeling to settle, and let your thinking mind lead the way. The pause gives you perspective, thinking gives you clarity, and the response you choose becomes a reflection of your strength. Taking control of your feelings is the first step toward taking control of your life. Whether people realize it or not, much of what shapes their future is tied to how well they manage what is happening inside them. When emotions are unchecked, they can quietly steer choices in directions that don't match a person's goals. A moment of anger can damage trust. Ongoing worry can hold someone back from trying, and discouragement can convince a person to stop when progress was still possible. But when someone learns to guide their feelings instead of being guided by them, they begin to move through life with greater clarity and purpose. Control does not mean shutting emotions down or pretending everything is fine. Feelings carry useful information. They can highlight what matters, signal when something needs attention, and remind you of your values. The key is to notice them without immediately letting them decide your next move. When you acknowledge a feeling and then choose a thoughtful response, you step into a more intentional way of living. Consider how different a day can feel when it starts with awareness rather than reaction. Plans may change, people may disagree, and unexpected challenges may appear, but a steady inner approach makes it easier to adapt. Instead of being pulled off course by every inconvenience, you keep sight of what you are trying to build. That steadiness helps you stay committed to responsibilities, treat others with respect, and continue working toward long-term goals, even when the short-term feels uncomfortable. Another important part of taking control is recognizing patterns. Everyone has certain situations that spark strong emotions. Once you identify those patterns, you can prepare for them. Preparation might mean giving yourself a moment to breathe before answering, stepping back to look at the bigger picture, or reminding yourself of what truly deserves your energy. These small practices create space for wiser decisions. As this habit grows, confidence often grows with it. You begin to trust that you can handle pressure without being overwhelmed. That trust supports better communication, stronger relationships, and more consistent effort. People tend to feel at ease around someone who responds calmly, and opportunities often open more easily when others see reliability and self-command. Taking charge of your feelings also helps you focus on what is within your influence. Not everything will go according to plan, and not every opinion will be supportive. However, your attitude, your effort, and your response remain yours to shape. By directing attention to these areas, you invest energy where it can actually make a difference. Over time, this approach builds resilience. Setbacks become lessons rather than stopping points, and progress becomes the result of steady choices rather than fleeting moods. Each thoughtful response is like laying a brick in the foundation of the life you want. With patience and practice, you create a path that reflects your intentions instead of your impulses, and that is where genuine direction begins to take form.